Hello guys, and welcome back to our channel. Now in today's video we'll be taking a look at articism and colorism within the Indian community. A poignant discussion has been sparked and it's time to confront the uncomfortable truth. In this video, an Indian lady's response to a comment about racial features has ignited a necessary conversation about the deeply ingrained biases that exist within the Indian community. As she so aptly put it, Indians are arch-racist because they are arch-racist. Now, this bold statement has prompted others to share their own experiences and sentiments, highlighting the prevalence of anti-blackness and colorism within the community. The fact that some Indians are more likely to side with certain political ideologies like MAGA or pretend to be something they are not is a reminder of the internalized biases that need to be addressed. Now, the question still remains, as an Indian person, how would your family react if they knew you were dating a black person? Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's time to take a deeper look into the complexities of articism and colorism within the Indian community. So with that said, let's take a look at these videos as Indian people themselves share their thoughts and facts on this. I will be right back.
I didn't correct that black woman that Indians are because they're racist. She's right. We have to have a reckoning. That's why Vivek Ramaswamy and Usha Vance are happy to side with MAGA. That's why Nimrata is pretending she's a white woman. And that's why in this election, while Indians still by minority voted the most Democratic, we have a bigger section that is now voting Republican. It's because Indians have a built-in anti-blackness and colorism. And when you argue with a black woman to say that, well, we're not as dark as black people, one, you prove to me that you don't know a lot of black people. I grew up with lots of black people who were definitely lighter than me. Not that I'm kind of in the middle. And I grew up with Indian people who were darker than black people. And you would be lying. Or you have not met enough Indian people to see people of different colors. But what I think is actually happening is you are deeply sick. And you would like to believe the fair and lovely myth that we can bleach ourselves away from being brown and that we can pretend to be white. And I got bad news for you. We're not. And I'm actually very proud to be brown. Sounds like you're not.
I'm gonna stitch this video because I've made many videos talking about in our community, but I've seen a lot of stitches on this video and Indian people saying, well, it's not all Indian people. Yeah, we know that, black people know that, but it's a lot of us. So they are valid to say Indian people list. And can you honestly tell me, how would your family react if they know you're dating a black person? I also saw someone say, well, black people are to us too. Two wrongs don't make a right, but I'm also having a hard time believing that you know that many black people. And you're probably just making this assumption from like two black people that were nice to you. So like, well, they was too. We as Indian people need to acknowledge how we are wrong and apologize and change. We literally have come through apartheid together and somehow we're still divided. It doesn't make sense.
All of y'all totally deserve the that you experience. Do you know the number of times I've seen an Indian in Japan out in public and I smile at them and they look away, or they just stare at me and give me the stink eye as if like, I've just assaulted them or something? Why do you feel compelled to be unpleasant to other people of your own race, but then expect other races to treat you properly? Because these are the same people that will literally bend over backwards and give all smiles and like pleasantries to a white person. I just know that they're the same people. And to be honest, it's generally like most Asians who do this, right? One time I went out to eat and we were waiting in line with like one of my friends, and there was this Singaporean lady and her daughter in line, and I could very obviously tell that she's Singaporean because of like her accent. Anyway, she starts a conversation with my friend who's a white American, and obviously like she's born and bred in America now. She doesn't have even like a single bit of Singaporeanness in her voice. And my friend's pretty much telling her about the program we're in. She's like, yeah, we're Jets, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, oh, I'm from Singapore. And my friend is like, no way. My friend is Singaporean. This lady looks at me, she goes, oh, okay, and continues talking to my friend as if she, like, I don't exist. And then she proceeds to say, oh my god, you have to tell me all about how you got to Japan because my daughter really wants to move to Japan. I applied through the Japanese embassy in Singapore as a Singaporean. If anything, you should be asking me. But you're pretending that I don't exist and actively engaging the white person. Why? This is literally why we got colonized. Like, this is exactly why. It pisses me off. Like, if you are a brown person and you see another brown person, it should just be code that, like, you talk to them, right? And this Singaporean lady was Chinese. And look, Chinese Singaporeans were not very good to me on a good day in Singapore. So, like, I don't expect them to be good to me in a foreign country. But, like, as a brown person, where is your dignity? Like, with worshipping white people, happens in my own family. That's, like, the most disappointing thing. Like, it happens with, like, my extended family. Not my parents, thank God. But, like, you know, my cousins and my aunts and uncles and stuff. It's honestly so disgusting. It's like, oh my God, where's your record mana sulusone?
So, this is one of the things that I think I've learned a lot through TikTok and have started to challenge a lot of my beliefs because of the wonderful community I'm surrounded with. And I just hope that talking about this would probably encourage more people to, I don't know, challenge their preconceived notions about other minority groups. But just to start off with, like, I'm Indian, I've held this belief in the past, and I understand now how harmful it is, so I just want to talk about it a little bit more. The concept means that it is normalized, it is structural, it is systemic, so it bleeds into every institution and is a part of that institution. So when you say things like, so normalized against blah, 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 it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what racism is. And this kind of perspective gives more fuel to comparing our struggle to other struggles and to put us in competition with other minority groups rather than serving as a position to unite against. So, for example, stemming from white supremacy is exactly the concept that unites us with other minority groups, particularly racial minority groups. And then when people say that is normalized against Indians, they typically come from a place of where other minority groups are being towards Indians. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy with that, as a large part of our community is anti-Black. So how are you going to be like against our community is so normalized? And I know for a fact that every single brown guy in the community has either said or heard one of their friends say, no, it is not uniquely normalized against Indians. And there's been a history of us uniting against white supremacy. Take the Rainbow Coalition as Indians unite with Hispanic, Latine groups in Chicago and major cities with uniting with the Black community against capitalism, patriarchy, and also reflecting a lot about the communities that we've affected within our own. How casteist, classist our own communities are, how much racial nationalism, particularly Hindu nationalism, exists in India, and how that affects us here. The amount of caste-based oppression that happens in the United States goes completely unaddressed. So where do we go from there? This is all to say that we need to take steps to make changes within our community so that we can fight against white supremacy rather than blaming other communities.
People get so triggered by my content. Internal is here and it does exist. There's people from your own ethnicity group that won't like you because you're from their own ethnicity group. There's people from your own ethnicity group that won't like you because maybe to them you're a bit too religious for them and you're a bit too out there. Or maybe it's the other way. Maybe you're not religious enough. Maybe you're not in touch with your culture enough. So they won't want to associate with you. They will distance themselves. There are parents out there that would actually encourage their children to marry a white person rather than their own kind. There are parents out there that aren't even teaching their children their mother tongue. So if you don't understand your mother tongue, then how much of your culture do you know? So naturally, you are going to lean in towards your British culture. There are parents out there that don't even understand anything about their own culture to then teach their own children. There are parents out there that would be absolutely horrified if, for example, their daughter came home with a dark skin, immigrated over from India, English not being their first language, guy, and she said to them that she wanted to marry him. There would be outrage. So this stuff happens, and I'm going to talk about it. So if you don't like it, don't follow.
Now, consistent discriminatory practices associated with dark and black skin color underpin the persistence of colorism and articism in the Indian subcontinent. Incidents of articism and colorism are mainly associated with the Western world. However, deeply embedded systems of colorism and articism can also be seen in societies of the Indian subcontinent. Now, while the terms colorism and articism are sometimes used interchangeably to study prejudice, discrimination, and inequality that Black people and people of color face all over the world, we consider colorism to be a subtype of the broader ideology of articism. Now, to understand what dimensions of articism, it is central to clarify possible ways in which the term race has been used and is used. Now, before the second half of the 20th century, race was in general understood to refer to a biological category that subdivides members of the human species on the basis of common physical characteristics, while coincidingly, different cognitive abilities were attributed to these members. Now, this essentially stance is specifically and ethically attainable. Yet, as Helen Gore 2017 poignantly puts it, rejecting this naturalistic fallacy of biological race and correlating acknowledgement of its socio-historic contingency does not diminish the fact that race has and continues to structure our lives, relationships, projects, and possibilities. In this sense, race is something that is lived by people, that is perceived by others, shapes the character of interactions, and is also clearly manifested in social inequality, as has been demonstrated for the US, Leopold and Martinez-Mateo 2021, and also holds for the Indian subcontinent. Race thus needs to be considered as a social construct that has motivated and still motivates political ideologies in which rights and privileges are distributed unequally. Now, articism is the ideology according to which human beings can be divided into groups called races, which are subject to superior or inferior treatment. Now, accordingly, racializing another person is to perceive and treat them as other on the basis of external characteristics or negative attributions that are exaggerated, naturalized, or stereotyped. Articism has served as a justification for racial dominance, violence, enslavement, discrimination, prejudice, and inequality in economic, political, and other social domains. Particularly since the late 17th century, racial classification research has been used by European colonial powers to fuel the doctrine of palm color supremacy. In various forms, alleged intellectual, moral, and cultural superiority of people with palm color skin. Now, this specific form of articism can be characterized as colorism. The term colorism was first introduced in 1983 by the American author Alice Walker as a prejudicial preferential treatment of same-race people based solely on their color. Now, colorism assumes that a light skin tone person is preferably to a person with a darker skin tone, and hence is a form of discrimination based on skin color. Now, according to Trina Jones, colorism operates on both intraracial and interracial levels, which makes colorism a rather complex phenomenon and backs the existence of color hierarchy as a social construct. Skin color stereotypes play a significant role in the practice of color-based discrimination. Light skin color is associated with civilization, superiority, power, beauty, rationality, intellect, good social standing, and elegance. Dark skin color, on the other hand, is associated with irrationality, unattractiveness, inferiority, and barbarism. Now, such prejudice and stereotypes make people believe in color hierarchy, both consciously and unconsciously, as a parameter of the superiority-inferiority index, and transform this parameter of color hierarchy into some sort of societal norm. Du Bois once said that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Disturbingly, the problem of the 21st century still is of the color line. There are cases of articism which are not cases of colorism. The ideology of Nazi fascists took so-called Aryans to be superior, for instance, to Jews and Slavs who both had palm color skin color. In contrast, cases of colorism are not intelligible with R-to-the-6 classifications. When people with a lighter skin tone discriminate people with a darker skin tone, although both would be regarded as belonging to the same race or even to the same family, this colorist practice is an instance of articism as it builds upon the assumption that humans are of different worth because of contingent features. Now, also in cases where colorism seems to address beauty standards, it still inherits racial stereotypes. We thus take articism to be the encompassing ideological order and colorism to be a subsystem within this order. Now, colorism in the Indian subcontinent has a long and complex history, influenced by intertwined factors such as the caste system, religion, and colonialism, which has transformed colorism into cultural practices. The genealogy of palm-coloredness or lightness superiority is distributed among Indian historians, as is the parable of iron domination. Now, the following are among the prominent theories. Ions introduce color hierarchy. Ancient Hindu scriptures pontificate the idea British colonization implemented colorist divisions. Now, the caste system in the Indian subcontinent is a social phenomenon according to which certain groups claim a birthright to privilege and superiority. The complex hierarchical arrangement of the caste system is also heavily influenced by religious beliefs that castes who are palm color are favored more by God and hence are superior. Now, this constructed ideology proved to be advantageous to British colonizers who recognized the existing caste system and created further divisions to enact repressive strategies. While there is consensus nowadays that the two sociological constructs, caste and race, cannot be equated, since there was no phenotypical resemblance between members of the same caste, descent and caste were not the same, and caste beliefs had to be understood locally. This does not mean that skin color did not play an important role in hierarchizing the Indian society. However, the complex hierarchical arrangement of the caste system got reduced essentially to skin color and socioeconomic privileges. British colonists used the Brahmin concept of hierarchical organization based on skin color and rewarded wealth and status to Brahmins. Now, during the colonization period of the British rule in the Indian subcontinent, places like restaurants, educational establishments, and British clubs had signboards saying and Indians not allowed. In particular, they prohibited dark-skinned Indians from entering. Now, these exclusion practices contributed to a lasting social impact on colonial mentality and reinforced the common man's attitude of associating palm-coloredness with power. Now, we have finally come to the end of the video, but do you feel this is still the problem that is persisting in the Indian subcontinent? Share your thoughts, your views in the comment section down below, and let's have a conversation. Thank you for always watching, and see you in our next video as we bring you another interesting video.